grumpy. You want more? Good morning to another busy weekend. I've wanted to do this for a little bit, but wanted to get better at it. I've had a few friends ask about making sourdough, and I was really intimidated. It took me a couple years actually to get with the program and actually get to making sourdough. So I got my starter from a friend down the road, a wonderful young lady named Chesney. She's a 4-H'er. She's done some other stuff. I think I've mentioned this before, but anyway, she gave me some excellent starter. My first thing was to keep it alive. Excuse me. So my first thing was to learn to keep it alive. And I went through a lot of flour, keeping it on the counter, keeping it going, and I kept it alive. But there was a lot of waste and excess that didn't get used. So I learned about keeping it, what is in my face? Is that a spider? Yep, that's a spider. Anyway, keeping it in the refrigerator so that you cut down on how much flour and how much waste you have. So my sourdough starter goes into the fridge Sunday evening, comes out Thursday morning. A big misconception about sourdough and bread in general, I think, is that it is time consuming. It takes time to make bread, but you can do it in a way to fit your schedule so that you're not standing there with your bread the whole time. So here's what works for me. Here's my routine, not a how-to. I am going to post a video of actual an actual recipe that I used and have just sort of worked with and learned from down below so that you can try that. I am going to go through making a loaf with you. So sourdough goes in the fridge, or sourdough starter goes in the fridge on Sunday, comes out Thursday, and I let it sort of wake up all day. Then I feed it Thursday night, and here's a real big tip and secret is that heat is going to be your very best friend. Not hot, but it needs to be nice and warm and humid if possible. You're gonna create the humidity in your jar, whatever you store your sourdough starter in, but you want it to be warm. When it's cooler, my starter does not rise, and you want it to double, if not triple, your size so that you know you have a good active starter. You wanna keep that bacteria good and happy. So my starter, Thursday on, lives on our grow shelf on a heat mat that I can turn on or not. It's between basil and peppers. I'm trying to give it an Italian influence. Just kidding. But here, let me show you what it looks like. It was fed Thursday, and then I used quite a bit of it on Friday because I make fried bread on Friday for myself because I'm the only one who likes it. So it's only really just under doubled in size since yesterday. So I'm not going to use this. I gave it another tablespoon this morning and mixed it up, and I'm going to put it back on the grow shelf and just leave it. And I'm going to check it throughout the day. I'm not going to sit with it and watch it. I'm just going to peek at it as I go by. Don't keep it hot, just keep it warm. Some people keep it on a window covered. Some people I know keep it in their greenhouses. But anyway, this thing is going to sit on that grow shelf and continue waking up and growing till I check it and it's where I want it. But Matt and I are going to go to the dump for now. Welcome to Julia Child. We're making sourdough today. Just kidding. Have you seen the show? It's a good one. Okay. Anyway, so we're doing stuff outside, so if I look dirty or sweaty, I am both. I checked my sourdough starter. It's just over twice as big, so I'm pretty happy with that. So I can start my bread process. I'm gonna post a better video because this is not a how-to. This is just what I've done that I've had success with. This part is called autolyse. It's when you combine just your flour and your water and you just let them get together and kind of get to know each other. Sourdough is kind of like a long-term relationship. It takes a lot of patience and effort, but again, it's not going to take you all day. So we're going to do baker's percentages. This is really easy. Mixing bowl. I use 3 kinds of flour for making bread, only because getting other flours has been tricky. For the bread part itself, I use white flour, which must be unbleached, and a pretty decent protein. I use King Arthur, so if you can get an 11 to 13% protein, you're going to be fine. I also use about 10 to 15% of wheat flour because I've found 2 things: a better crust and a moister crumb. So the third flour that I use, which is for dusting your bannetons, and I put some on top when I stick it in the oven just so it doesn't burn as bad, is rice flour. I saw this on an artesian sourdough bread maker, and they make hundreds of loaves a day, and they recommended this for your bannetons, and it works incredibly well. So we are going to get zeroed out. Come on. There we go. All right. And we are going to get to about 850 to 900 grams of flour. Whoops, that was too much. So I'm at like 918, and believe it or not, just a few grams makes a difference. Okay, so we're at 875. The rest we're going to do in the wheat flour. So you can see how easy that is. Get your scale, just fill it up with whatever flour you're using till you get to 1,000. And again, just a little too much. Scoop out about 7 grams worth. Perfect. All right, happy with that. Let me move these out of the way. Where'd my lid go? Okay, that part's done. Now I'm going to mix the 2 flours together. Just give it a good old stir. And go ahead and add your water. In the video, he recommends using a slightly lower percentage of moisture, which I agree is easier to work with. It does, however, make your dough a little denser. So just keep that in mind. You're going to play with it anyway. You're going to learn from your mistakes and your successes. So go for it. So we're going to go for like 80%. 80. Go ahead and mix your flour and water together. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to be pretty. You're just introducing them to one another. Let them, you know, have a drink, a cocktail, a mocktail, and they're going to spend a little time on a 1-hour date while they're auto leasing. Okay, yeah, that's going to work out just fine. Make sure you get all the flour on the bottom because it likes to just hide down there. And then, okay, so you've got your blob. I'll show you how ugly this is so you don't freak out. Don't blend your flour. You don't need a flour hook. You're not even going to need this. So sourdough is a very easy dough to work with. So you don't even need muscles. Okay, so that's what it looks like. All right, so I'm gonna cover this with saran wrap and leave in a warm place. If it was like chilly, I would go ahead and turn my heat pad on and set it on there. If you're running the dryer, you can set it on there. Just have it be warm. If it's a little bit humid, that's fine. What's the temperature? We're at 80 inside. We don't run the AC. If it's pleasant, it is very pleasant and breezy today. So it's 80, I'm fine with that. I think I'm just gonna leave it here. This I'm gonna go ahead and stick back outside so it can continue to boil and bubble and get extra, extra happy before making bread. I'm gonna set a timer for 1 hour and I will be back to check on that. Oh, we're on hole number 4.
You know what'd be cool?
What?
Plant like a red rose in here, put like a Beauty and the Beast thing over it on this thing.
Like a raised.
That looked cool.
All right, so we've got 1 apple tree there. 2nd apple tree needs to go in. These 2 are pears, and I'm not sure what I've decided to do down here, but this is it for now. All right, that's good. I think we just got to go a little bit deeper, okay? Okay. Just because I'm putting the cow shit, cow poop in the holes. Don't say bad words, David. Make good life choices, honey.
He could feel the blood.
All right, so we are done for the day with trees. We got 4 trees in, 2 apple, 2 pear. We're gonna take the plums and the other peach tree that direction. And we have 2 red maple. I think what I may end up doing is putting 1 there and 1 here. I want to put 1 on the other side. However, we need to get them to come and show us where the power line comes. So I don't think I can do that today. All right, showered and changed, and now we are actually going to get to making bread. So this is probably the longest part because it's going to take, depending on how many times you want to do your stretch and fold, it's probably going to take 3 to 4 hours. So just plan when you're going to be home. You're not going to have to babysit this. You're just going to have to return to it every half hour to do a stretch and fold. So you can go ahead and get your auto leased dough and put it on your scale. 0. One thing that I like to do, salt kills bacteria. This is obviously a live bacteria, so we don't want to kill it. So what I've been doing, and I don't know if it makes a difference, but I don't like to combine them at the same time. So I've been putting my salt in my dough, mixing it in a little bit, and then adding my starter. That seems to work well. I haven't had any problems with the starter activity. Some wet hands help this process a lot. You're going to take your 20 grams of salt, or however you worked it out, and you're going to go ahead, fold that in, zeroed out, and we need 150 grams. I've been playing with going over that ratio just a hair, like 160, 170. Last time it worked really well, so I'm just gonna go, there we go, that's 170. I'm gonna feed that before I put it back over here to continue fermenting. I'm not gonna put it, you could just put it right back in the fridge and let it ferment, but what I've been doing is feeding it, fermenting it out, and then using some of the starter either for more bread or for some fried bread, and then feeding it and putting it back in the fridge, and that keeps it nice and happy, and it's very active when I pull it out. So you've got your starter in here, and we got to get mixing that into the dough. Keep it nice and moist and warm. Again, if it's a cool day, a heat mat or a warm space is going to be your best friend. It's perfectly fine in here. I'm going to wash my hand. Okay, so I have my actual dough with everything incorporated sitting here, and it's going to continue fermenting and just getting better every single time we return to it. I refed my starter. It is warmer outside, so I'm going to stick it outside for now, wrapped in a little towel. I don't know if this actually makes any difference, but I feel like it feels loved and cared for. I'm going to set a timer for 30 minutes. And we're on the countdown. This process is going to be repeated 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, 6 to 8 times seems to do the trick. I'm sure some people get away with less. Some people might do more. And it probably depends on your humidity and your heat and a whole bunch of things, but I'm gonna try and explain as I go with each stretch and fold how the dough changes and when you can start to feel like you're ready to do your bulk rise. And we're back. Unfold, uncover, wet hands, and only stretch 2, and it's stretching beautifully. It's like 6 to 10 inches the first few folds, and then you're gonna feel how it just, I don't know if it's the right word is springs back, or there's resistance, and that's exactly what you're trying to build, is the resistance in your dough, because that is the structure of the dough from the protein. All right, and you just, again, you're not trying to break it and you are not kneading it, you are stretching and folding, and then it always helps to do a plop, wash your hands, 30 more minutes. Okay, so we are on to our final stretch and fold. And then I am going to do a slow fermentation. So, watching the video that I'm going to post and also doing your own research, you're going to decide if you want to do a slow or a short fermentation. You can ferment this, you can do a final rise, final bulk rise, just in the ambient temperature. You can also put it in the fridge and do a slow rise of like 8 to 10 hours, which I have found to be significantly better. There's better flavor, there's better texture, you get a better loaf out of your dough that you've already worked so hard for. So I have preferred to do that. I also find that it works with my timetable. I am developing my starter from Thursday to Friday, then I use it into Saturday where I make 2 loaves, and then I can still utilize my starter into Sunday where I make 2 more loaves. So it really depends on what I'm going for, or I can just pop the starter back in the fridge. It's just a personal preference, but I'm going to show you what it looks like. It's got a really nice structure, but it's malleable. So if you're new to this, it looks kind of like a blob, but you're going to notice that there is still space on the edges where it's just slightly pulling away. Now, oh, here's another good indication. Right there is a little bubble. There are lots of bubbles in here. Every time you do your stretch and fold, you're going to let some of the gases out. Now, when you put it into the fridge and you let it do a slow fermentation, all that yeast is going to take a slower process. I don't know why. I don't understand the science behind it. I just like what is produced better. So I go with the slow fermentation. It works because I can take all of Saturday to develop a loaf. I can take all of Sunday to develop a loaf, and then I can just pop them in the oven. Baking this stuff takes like 30 minutes. Well, 30, 40 minutes, depending on your oven. If you have a convection oven, you're way over what I'm dealing with. But I have to do a bake, and then I have to do a caramelization. So I'm going to do 1 more stretch and fold, let it sit, and then I am putting it into the refrigerator. And it's the next morning. So, go in a nice clean area. I already wiped the counter down. And take your dough out of the refrigerator. And it looks oh so bubbly this morning. Go ahead and flour liberally. When the dough comes out, at first it's going to be quite wet, and you're going to kind of build up the structure of your loaves. But for the beginning, you need quite a bit of flour. Go. Stretch the dough out. There's a reason I posted the video of the guy who knows what he's doing, because I don't, but I'm learning with every single experience. Just make sure when you're stretching your dough, you're not tearing it as well. That's definitely not the point. And there's no kneading involved. Literally, no need to knead. So I'm just stretching and folding. And then I am going to take whatever this thing is called. Scraper? Bench scraper? I can't remember. This recipe makes 2 very good sized loaves. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this in half. And I'm not going to clean up my area because these are going to bench rest for about 30 minutes. And then I'm going to come back. It is morning and the roosters are crowing and the girls are standing at the corner of their pen looking at me. So I'm going to let these guys rest, go feed the animals, and be back to do the final shaping before we do our final rise. That is what our loaves are looking like at bench rest, and I will see you in about 30 minutes. Okay, back in the kitchen, hands are washed, and now we're going to do the final shaping. So you're going to need your regular flour, rice, looks exactly the same. Rice flour, your Banneton, and I only have one Banneton, so I've actually been using the same mixing bowl after I clean it and dry it for my final rise. It's not ideal. I keep forgetting to order more Bannetons, which I'll probably do right after this, but I'm gonna wait for the teenager to go outside.
Why are they in the cages?
Because they're getting some exercise.
Oh.
All right. So we're gonna uncover our dough, and we're not gonna need that plastic anymore. Do more flour. And again, you don't have a need to knead, but we're gonna stretch it out. Stretch it out. Make sure it's floured. Nice and stretched. And again, lots of ways to do this. I've just kind of been playing with how I do it every single time. I do find that stretching it out and then doing like this crisscross, you're not braiding it, you're just crisscrossing it, developed better air pockets last time. So that's what I'm gonna do this time, and then fold it in on itself. And just, you'll feel, a lot of this is feel. You're gonna start feeling when your dough is where you want it. I think in the beginning I didn't do this enough, just didn't spend enough time with the dough, and I get kind of blobby wet dough, but slowly but surely I'm getting more comfortable with using the flour and creating the shape, and just understanding that each loaf kind of develops its own way in its own time, and if you go off your feel more than anything, that's probably the best bet. It's, you know, baking is scientific in the sense that it's very precise, but there are certain things, and I don't know if it's because it's wild yeast or fermentation, I don't know why some things about this are just going to come down to the elements that you're working in. Like today is cool. So I've actually turned on, the heat pad was on last night for the seedlings and for my starter, but I'm gonna set these on there, not the whole time, but probably for just an hour, and then take them off and let them finish at room temperature. I'm not sure what it is in here, but it's only 50 degrees outside. All right, so these are my 2 loaves that are in. If you if you don't have a Banneton, even if you do have a Banneton, you need to flour liberally around the outside, and that's what I use the rice flour for. And then I just cover them up. We're gonna let those sit for about 2 to 4 hours. The best results I've had with this is right about the 3-hour mark. You do a little bit of the poke test, which is in the other video. He'll explain it better than I will. But yeah, I'm gonna see you and tell you the other few things right before we put this in the oven. So check you out in a few hours. Okay, so we are back in. Poke test looks just about right. So they're gonna have another 45 minutes or so to rise, well, whatever they do. Anyway, I wanted to show you before I put it in the oven, this is a really, really important step. You need your oven at temperature, and you need to preheat whatever you're cooking in. I use the Dutch oven method. There's other methods. The most important thing is that you create steam, because that is what gets your sourdough to rise. So I have 2 cast irons. This is the one that I have been using. It's pretty small, so I'm interested to do this because I'm gonna do one in here, and then I got this for Mother's Day, and it is huge. So I'm gonna do one in here, one in here, to see how well they do. I'm interested to see if I have more oven spring in this one, because there will be more space for steam to create, to accumulate. In this one, there isn't very much space. So we're gonna try it and we're gonna see. I'm gonna do the first one in the small one and the second one in the larger one. This step, don't skip. Put them in the oven and let your Dutch ovens come to temperature if this is the method that you're gonna go with. I have done it and skipped that step, and you're not going to get the spring that you want, which is the nice rise in your loaf. So I'm gonna pop these in the oven and let them heat up about 45 minutes to an hour, and then we will do our very first loaf. Okay, so Dutch ovens are warm, bread is done. I am going to do these one at a time, should only take me a few minutes. I need to order a better one of these, one with a handle. I don't even think that's big enough. Might have to use the big chopping board. Hang on. Big chopping board it is. So, get my rice flour, dust my top. I actually saw somebody do this with a Dutch oven that was like flat with a rounded lid. I might try that in future. Tuck everything under. Okay, and there it is. Okay. Oh, don't handle your Dutch oven without protection. Really. Yeah, this is not the, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna plop it in there. Plop. Lid on, back in the oven. Whew. Now to try it with the big one. This one's even more bloppy than my other one. Do our plop. It is on, back in the oven. Everything's in the oven. Time to clean this up. Set the timer for 20-25 minutes. My oven is at 5:15, and I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, so my timer just went off. I'm gonna pull both Dutch ovens out just so we can see the loaves together. One of them I'm gonna put back in and brown off now. The other one, I'm gonna try a new method. I really like the tang of sourdough bread. When you bake it and just finish it off right away, it's lovely bread. It has a delicious flavor, but it's not super tangy. But keeping the starter in the fridge, that is improved. However, there's a technique where you take it out and allow the loaf to rest. And you can do it for any length of time. The longer length of time is supposed to increase the sourness. So I am going to finish one now, put it back in once we see it. And the other one I'm going to go ahead and put here because it is technically baked. It's just not finished. So I will put that back in a few hours and see if that does make any difference to the flavor. So hang on, I will be right back. Okay, bring you over here with me. So Dutch oven number 1, that is lovely. We're gonna check the other one and see which one we'll leave in. Dutch oven number 2, also lovely. Not as good of a spring. I have to say that I like the shape on this one a whole lot better. So I am gonna head and put this back in the oven. When you finish baking the bread, you want to reduce the temperature, so I'm gonna reduce it to about 450 and then leave it in there. And I set a timer for 10 minutes and then I keep checking every 3 to 5 minutes. I see a lot of sourdough get finished off and it's like burnt, and I'm not a fan. Maybe that's just a preference thing, but I like it to be nice and crispy, but not burnt. So the one and the small one, I'm gonna set up here to cool, and it's gonna go back in the oven in a few hours to be finished. This one is gonna get finished now and delivered to a friend. All right, so there are the loaves. One not completely finished, one that is done and going out for delivery. And here, I'm gonna set you down here so you can see the difference in the shape. See how one, well, from here it doesn't look so bad. It's just that it's not uniform. It's like all the heat came from the middle, whereas this one is a whole lot more uniform and less looking like a, I don't know, a volcano. But I've just gotten to where I get a decent oven spring and am learning to score a little better. So they're gonna taste wonderful, and every time I do a loaf, I learn something new. I think it was cooler today, and I've noticed every time I make bread on the cool days, even though it's wonderful, delicious on the cool days, it just doesn't do as good. I have also noticed it's really good to bake this first thing in the morning. I don't know why. I don't know if there's something in the air the bread likes and it comes up better. But if I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and do the final rise of my loaves, they come out so much better. But I'm still happy with these. This one is gonna sit here for a few hours, and then I'm gonna pop it back in probably around 5 or 6 o'clock for 20 minutes to brown up like this guy. But this one is going to a friend's house, so they can enjoy some warm bread on a cool day. So thank you so much for joining me. It's going to be interesting after another year or so to go back and watch this and see what I've learned. Don't be intimidated by bread. Don't be intimidated by sourdough bread. It takes a day and a half to prepare, but it doesn't take a day and a half of your life. So as you can see, we still got all the chores done, all the errands run, all the things done. The goats are moved, the trees are planted, and you just work it in. It's all about scheduling. So have fun, make some sourdough, and if you would, feel free to drop any suggestions down below. If you're an experienced sourdough maker, or if you have questions, let me know. I will try and answer. If not, I will try and direct you in a place that has answers. So take care, be safe, and I will see you on the next one.